Hey everyone, welcome to the 322nd episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a fun show for you today. We're going to be talking about a new player in the smart home. You'll find out in a second who that is. We've got a new Bluetooth flaw that looks pretty gnarly. Google has a new OS. We're going to talk about that. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on the Google I.O. news from last week. We've got more surveillance tech coming out. We've got actually a new privacy bill, possibly to mitigate some of that surveillance tech. And we're going to talk a little bit about Eero getting HomeKit support and a new product from Wise. Plus, our guest this week is Beth Flippo, who is the CTO of Telegrid and who is in charge of the Drone Express business. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when they signed a deal with Kroger, and Beth is on the show to tell us a little bit about the cool mesh technology that enables their drone delivery as a service and a bunch of other stuff. You're going to like it. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, Very, talking about its hardware strategy in these remote times. So now, let's take a moment and go to a different message from Very, who is our sponsor. Y'all, are you looking for an IoT development team who's been there and done that? Very has an award-winning team of senior engineers, designers, and data scientists who work with you to get your biggest IoT hardware and software products fully operational. You can learn more about them at www.verypossible.com. That's www.verypossible.com. Okay, Kevin, let's kick it off with Roku. This is from our friend and former colleague, Janko Rutgers. He scooped everyone, noting that Roku has a job listing and is looking to build out its smart home technologies.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised it's taken them this long. They've done really well in the home entertainment media space for quite a long time.
I have a Roku.
Do you actually have a Roku device or a Roku
I do.
TV?
I have a Roku device, and I have every time we assess our media streaming device, because we haven't had cable since 2008, we choose Roku. And it's because they're not, up until about this year, they weren't in the content business, so everybody worked with Roku. And that was very nice and awesome.
Right. We have a TV with Roku built in, so I agree with you on the content. It's just been very nice. It's a good user interface in general, and we get a lot of value from it. So they've done really well in this space. Lots of partnerships, as I said, integrated in TVs, but that's as far as they've gone. And now it looks like they want to get into the smart home device business.
Yeah. So Janko tells us that Roku has hired Damir Skripik, who joined the company from Amazon, and he had worked with TP-Link's Casa smart home unit and at Arlo. And he's basically trying to build a smart home business that includes Roku products and integrating Roku with other devices and features. And by the way, y'all, Roku is still hiring for smart home folks, people to do partnerships. So I know someone out there listening to this show is like, holy cow, let me find that job listing. We'll link to the story in our show notes. So basically, if I think about this, though, I got to say, Harmony's remote leaving the field kind of opens up this area where you could, the reason I loved Harmony is because it tied my TV to my smart home. And I do think there's a hole in the non-professional installer market. So the DIYers, there's a very big hole for television and AV kind of equipment in the smart home. So I think Roku has an opening here.
Yeah, and they kind of have to do this, I think, because not just because this is the way the market has been going in general, but in Janko's story, he reports that their device business last year generated $43 million in gross profit, but ads and other services were $764.6 million in gross profit. So hardware alone is just not going to cut it, nor will ads.
Right. That's the way of the world nowadays. So I'm excited about this. I look forward to learning more from Roku. Roku, give us a call. We know lots of things about the smart home.
I'll be curious to see if they join any of the protocol alliance boards or groups. That'll be a nice telltale sign of what they're thinking.
Agreed. Well, no, because Matter, that's not going to do anything for them because unless they want to act as like a controller device. I mean, AV equipment is too complicated for what matters today.
Maybe they turn the TV into a better smart display.
But even the displays, unless, again, it's a controller, it doesn't really matter. Okay. On that note, let's move to a security hack. Bluetooth, y'all. These are 4 Bluetooth flaws that really do a number on the protocol. Basically, even if you've got highly secure Bluetooth, the most recent versions of Bluetooth and going all the way back to, I think it's 4.2, are vulnerable in a couple different ways to impersonation attacks. And did I say there were 6 flaws? There are 6 flaws.
Right, there's 6. Just to set the stage here, because it's Bluetooth, the attacks would have to be very localized. Somebody would need to be near your Bluetooth device.
Right, somewhere within Bluetooth range. And these are security credentialing attacks for the most part. And it means that basically someone can impersonate your devices. It makes it easy. And then they get attached to, if it's a Bluetooth, it's probably going to be attached to your phone and I don't know if they can actually access the OS or do anything too crazy once they're in there, but they definitely can grab data. So the Bluetooth SIG is aware of this. So are all these Bluetooth vendors. The recommendation is soon you're going to see updates required for some of your devices that use Bluetooth. So you should definitely do those updates. We'll link to something in the show notes that explain the impact and how the SIG recommends people handle each of these particular vulnerabilities. Some of them are less ideal, so we'll see how well this gets provisioned.
These are very widespread. It's not just Bluetooth implementations from particular vendors. The tests that were done to look for this were against 31 Bluetooth devices comprised of 28 unique Bluetooth chips, and the hardware vendors included Apple, Qualcomm, Intel, Cypress, Broadcom, Samsung. I mean, this is pretty broad, so that's what's more concerning to me than a one-off chip implementation or vendor implementation.
Yes, and I lied to y'all. Look, it goes all the way back to Bluetooth 4.0 through 5.2. So, and it's both normal Bluetooth low energy and mesh.
Yay, mesh. So, the one time I'm not happy about having Bluetooth mesh.
Exactly. So there you go. Be aware, everyone, vendors, customers. Yeah.
Well done, hackers. Well done.
Good research. All right. Here is some good research. Google's new Fuchsia Os arrives on the old Nest Hub. And I have a lot to say about Fuchsia Os. Actually, I don't. Kevin does. I just have been we've been following Fuchsia for was it 2016?
2016. And very little details have come since then. Which is weird because Fuchsia OS is a new operating system from Google, which is unique in itself. And also it's open source, which is great, but yet there's not a lot of Google discussion about it. If you want to know about it, you need to dig around in GitHub repos and I guess tinker yourself, which I haven't been doing of late, but I did go through some of the developer documentation earlier this week because, as you said, the new Fuchsia OS is actually available on the original Google Home Hubs, which are now the Nest Hubs. So those are the 2018 smart displays, which I still have 2 of those. I don't know if you do.
I think I do. They came out. Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, I've never upgraded
like my
from
device.
Those.
Wait,
yes.
Is this the one with the PIR sensor in it?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Because
it is. Okay. Yes. Then I have this one too.
Yes. And we also each have Lenovo smart displays, which are not getting this software update. In fact, no non-Google devices are getting this. And just a quick tidbit as to why. This is interesting. I just found this out not long before the show. The original smart displays were actually built on Android Things, which no longer exists. And Google decided to give its partners the Android Things implementation, but then created its own Cast OS implementation for our hubs. And our hubs are getting upgraded to Fuchsia 1.0. I know that's probably in the weeds, but it's just interesting. That shows, I don't want to say a lack of commitment towards certain technologies, but it's Google. So it kind of.
I was going to say, you just say it's Google, and we all know that they try stuff and then kill it later.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's happened here. So I mean, I could probably talk about this for an hour, but Stacy would have my head, so I won't do that. But what I will say is if you have the first gen Google Home Hub / Google Nest Hub, you may get a software update. Well, you will get one at some point that changes it from Cast OS to Fuchsia OS, but you won't notice any difference from a user interface or features or anything like that. To me, this is Google testing out their new operating system in the wild, but doing it in a controlled fashion because there are a limited number of people who still have this. So I think that's very smart on their part. If you're super interested, this runs on a new Google-built microkernel called Zircon that handles up just the boot up process, hardware communication, and application processes. The only other thing I'll say about this, because I go into detail in an article that's coming very soon, is the real benefit here from an IoT perspective is everything is sandboxed, everything is modular. So the way Google has set this up actually makes it very good for IoT devices. So that's probably all I want to say now, unless you want to hear more. I don't think you do.
I want you, Kevin, you make it. I love new OS. I mean, operating systems are hard. They don't come around every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Why is the sandboxing important for IoT? Maybe explain that for people.
So think about it this way, because this is something everybody can relate to. If you use the Google Chrome browser, or probably at this point Apple's Safari and Microsoft Edge for sure, you are using multiple tabs. Those tabs are sandboxed processes. They're almost like unique standalone applications because they are sandboxed. They cannot interact with the other tabs unless the user allows them to. So from an IoT perspective, it's the same thing. Any component, and that's what Google calls all of the standalone apps, which are actually modular and multiple components make up one app. Any components on a device each one, I should say, are sandboxed from the other components. So when an IoT device needs network information, it's only allowed to do certain things based on the scope of the sandbox and what the device maker allows and what the user allows. So it's building a modular security framework, essentially, to control what the device components can and can't access in terms of data and other apps on that device.
Ooh, I'm curious what that'll have implications for like future, like confidential compute, because I know Google's big on that.
That's a great way to describe it. And as far as that future, I don't know, because Google never announced this at I/O, which is very interesting to me, what they should have, in my opinion.
Yeah, they shared it via a tweet by the guy who's in charge of building the OS.
Yes, and instead a tweet came out this week saying, we just rolled out a new OS. I'm like, where were you at Google I/O to talk to all the developers about this, right? So the future is unknown. I don't know what they're doing. I can see where they're going, but as far as the low-level details and what devices may run Fuchsia and what that's going to mean for developers and users, that I don't know.
Yes. Okay. Well, we do know more things from I/O. Last week we talked about I/O, but we actually talked about it under embargo, and we didn't have all the news because the event hadn't happened when we recorded it. So I just want to update, we heard that, Google's going to support Matter on its smart displays and its latest generation Nest thermostats.
And routers.
And routers, yes, Wi-Fi routers. But at I/O, which we didn't know and learned, was remember back when Google killed the Works with Nest program? This was probably...
Yes.
Yeah.
We're all smarting from that. I'm still black and blue from that.
Yeah, so some people, are still holding on to their original Nest accounts because they're like, I can't change anything because I'll lose all my integrations that I built. Well, Google announced that they have what it's calling device access, a device access console. And through that, you can go there, set up an account, and basically run your personal Nest integrations that you've known and loved in a dedicated little sandbox area without having to go through there. Google has a bunch of security checks and policies that they built for kind of bigger companies working with Google's devices, working with Nest devices. So this gives you the functionality if you're a hardcore DIYer. And actually, Google says there are 15,000 of y'all building Nest integrations. So if you want to, device access is available, but there's a but. And Kevin?
Yeah, and I didn't know about this until just before the show, so I have not tried it out yet, but I've been to the Device Access Console website, and I look at some of the details. Right off the bat, you have to register Basically, you're registering as a developer, and it's going to cost you $5 one time, non-refundable, which I don't think is outrageous. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there's very little information here on how to create these integrations. They talk about how to create a project and modify a project and delete a project, and they tell you or explain what the rate limits are because you're going to be using Google APIs, so you can only have like 5 to 15 queries or voice commands per minute and so on, which is probably not a problem for people. But where's the example project? How would I create something? How do I set up the OAuth security that's required? The PubSub communication method that's required? It seems like this is there, but unless you know what you're doing, and I don't yet, it's going to be a lot of trial and error.
Oh, well, I have a project for Kevin. Hey!
I knew that was coming.
Summertime. You know you're not busy. All right. Moving right along. So that's the Google news. Let's talk about, surveillance tech. I saw this article. It's not surprising, but it's worth talking about. So in TechCrunch, they did a story about U.S. towns buying Chinese surveillance tech from Hikvision and Dahua. These are two camera companies. And the headline is basically, hey, these are the same guys making surveillance cameras and for, using to
monitor the Uyghurs.
Yeah. I was like, what's the word I'm like? It's not genocide. It's I don't know. It's not good.
No.
So basically, the Uyghurs are in the headline because we're all like, oh, this is terrible. China is clearly doing terrible things in terms of human rights abuses and always surveilling society. But basically, companies or cities in the U.S., they want these cameras too. And the Chinese cameras are cheap now. Congress did ban U.S. federal agencies from buying Hikvision and Dahua technology and renewing those contracts, but cities and states can do whatever they want. So there's two things here. One is cities near you are installing surveillance technologies, and some of these cameras have the ability to run facial recognition on the cameras. A city has to implement that. But it's also concerning because now these cameras can potentially, the U.S. government's worried that these cameras will offer basically Chinese spies, basically a camera's eye view onto various U.S. cities and towns.
Yeah, it sounds to me, at least, and this may be PR from the cities and towns, it sounds to me like they did not know the linkage between the companies who make these cameras and what's going on in China, because they worked through a contractor, Teltech Security in one case. So they wouldn't know, right? I don't think they would. And I don't think they bought them with the intent to do the same thing that China is doing. For example, some of them are thermal cameras to check temperatures of students at schools as they walk in and so on. I'm not saying it's not creepy. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be doing it, but it seems like they didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
Well, yeah. And it's kind of like you can't argue someone buying a knife to chop vegetables, when somebody else has used that same knife to slice someone up, right? These are a tool. Now, if the federal government is very serious about worries about spying from these companies and access, that needs to be propagated not just across federal level, but at the local levels, and there needs to be a bigger education campaign. And I also think that it does show how easy it is to put a tool in place and not have rules. Like right now we're putting these tools in place, but we don't actually have rules. So we don't actually have any rules that say, don't stab people with the knife yet, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have anti-surveillance, or we don't have any conversations happening about the ethics of what you do with that data. And we need to. And so this to me is an example of why we need to start talking about this and legislating it.
And also there needs to be, I think, more delving into what people are actually buying. They may say, oh, I'm just getting this camera and it's for thermal scanning, and that makes sense. But what else is in the code?
What else can this camera do?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, some of the code in the Dahua cameras was found to have race detection in its code, which is used to target the Uyghurs in China. I don't know that was the code that's being used for these particular cameras these companies bought, but does anybody know, I guess, is the question.
Yes, or no. No one knows.
No.
The answer is no. I am agreeing with you by saying no. Okay, but Not in the case of these smart cameras, but in the case of social media, we are getting a third try at a bill to protect consumer privacy. Yay! I guess.
Particularly from a social media standpoint, I believe.
Yes, this is social media more than anything else. But we could see something. I mean, I'm interested in these sorts of bills because I'm interested in seeing how we're talking about privacy going forward with regards to tech, right? And some of the issues are the same all across the board. Basically, it's easy to gather data. We all have a digital footprint from our devices, our comments, our everything, surfing, and it's being stored someplace and accessible forever. So those are the issues in my brain. But Senator Amy Klobuchar and others, including Senator John Kennedy and Joe Manchin and Richard Burr, are introducing a bill called the Social Media Privacy Protection and Consumer Rights Act. This is basically going to force companies to let people opt out of tracking and data collection. This is the third time this sort of bill has come into being. And it's basically trying to tell companies that are gathering consumer data, they have to give people a way to opt out. They have to delete the user's data if they close their account. And it tells companies what they have to do if they have a data breach. So they have to notify users within 72 hours, which is much faster than what it is today. They have to send a reminder saying, hey, by the way, you can opt out and close your account, and say, hey, you can delete your data, and provide them with a copy of the data that's been collected. A lot of this looks kind of like the GDPR.
To a large degree, it does. There's also a comment here in the reporting about the terms of service, which nobody reads. And I totally understand that because it's just filled with jargon. Rewriting the terms of service to make it more accessible, a reasonable length, and clear, concise language, because that would tremendously help people understand what they're actually signing up for.
Yes. And this is going to be relevant not just for social media companies, but for any company that's collecting data, which right now is a lot of connected device companies. Mm-hmm. And think about Amazon. They're not just collecting data from like your use of the Echo, they're collecting data from things that are connected to your Echo. So we'll see if this, I mean, we've been here before. We'll see if this is the year. We might have better luck simply because California has passed some legislation and is looking again at passing legislation on this. So I know that companies are now like, oh, crikey, we don't want 50 states. We want one federal law. We'll see. And then a final two news bits for you. Let's talk about HomeKit. Kevin?
Yeah, I got an update in my Eero app. I have the Eero 6 Pro mesh network, but this also applies to the Eero 6 routers as well. HomeKit support was added this week. This was already available on older Eero devices, and I'm confused by it in a sense, but let me tell you what it is, and then I'll explain the confusion. Basically, you can add your routers, your Eero 6 and 6 Pro routers, to HomeKit. I did that, and what Eero says is the point being you can then decide one of 3 access levels to your HomeKit devices. You can have their data only interact to other HomeKit devices in the home. You can have an automatic setting where it will just be devices will automatically connect to a approved list of manufacturers, services, and devices, or no restrictions, meaning your devices can talk to anything. Basically, it's kind of like firewall settings for each individual HomeKit device, which is great. And my installation of it went fine. But I still don't see where in my app I can set those firewall settings on a per device basis. So I may be missing something.
I wonder if you're missing the security, like the Eero Security Plus or security subscription.
I actually have that, the Eero Secure Plus. So I don't know. I'm just not seeing it yet. Again, I may be missing it, and it's really not telling me where in the Eero support I should do this. I mean, when I go look where it tells me, I don't see any setup for this.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to this next week and see if anything's changed. Maybe Eero will give us a call and be like, Kevin, what's wrong with you?
Kevin, you dummy. It's right in front of your face.
Exactly. It happens to all of us. We all miss things.
Yeah, I got all excited when I saw the update, and I ran through the process to set it up. And then I don't see anything different.
Well, and that's a very valuable thing we get so many questions from people about how do I isolate my devices from the network? How can I be more secure? So this seems really relevant. Okay, we'll see. So you're in the dark right now. But speaking of being in the dark,
Good segue.
terrible. Wise has a new device. And what is this new device that they have? It's not anything you might think of. It's a nightlight. That's right.
It's many nightlights.
Yeah, for $20, you get a 3-pack of a nice nightlight. I saw this and I was like, this is worthless to me.
You had originally said, let's not even talk about this because it's not really connected. But then I noticed something sort of interesting. You can link up to 10 of these, and Wise says that will create a directional lighting experience. So each one of these has a motion sensor. And you can, when the sensor goes off or somebody walks past one of these, one or many of these can light up. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I could do like truly directional lighting. So as I walk past one, the next two light up. And then I walk closer to the next one. And then the next two light up and the one behind me goes off. But there's no app access. These are kind of dumb in that regard. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, if you need some nightlights, Wise has some.
Yeah.
That's the headline here.
There's your lead. If you need lights, Wise has them.
That's how enthusiastic I am about that.
Well, they're nice looking. They're battery powered. And
I have similar nightlights I bought for like $4.99 at Walmart. I mean, no, they don't work as a team, but anyway. All right, moving right along.
There's no light in team.
There isn't. All right. Now it is time for that segment of the show where we hear from you, our listeners. That's right. It's the IoT Podcast Hotline, which is sponsored by Ayla. Ayla offers a modern platform and solutions to enable manufacturers and service providers to develop secure, connected products to accelerate digital transformation initiatives. You can learn more at aylanetworks.com. Okay, thank you, Ayla, for sponsoring the hotline. Everyone, if you would like to call us and ask us a question, you can reach us at 512-623-7424. And when you call us, you'll be entered to win a smart speaker of your choice.
Don't wait, because it's the end of the month is when we close that, and the end of the month is coming.
That's right. So if you call us before midnight Eastern on May 31st, you will be entered in the May drawing to win. And so far, people seem pretty excited to win the stuff. So, okay. And this week's call is from Noah, and it's about actually Wise security and making that work with some other things. Let's hear it.
Hi, Stacey and Kevin. I'm a big fan of the show. I have a question for you regarding a home security system. I just purchased the Wise home security system and was wondering if you know of a way to integrate my Nest X Yale lock that I have. I'd like to be able to disarm my Wise alarm when I enter in the code on my Nest X Yale lock. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks again.
I have the same Nest by Yale lock that Noah has. And right now, it doesn't integrate with much because I moved over to HomeKit and so I feel Noah's pain. I don't have the Wise home security system, but I do have a lot of Wise bulbs. Unfortunately, he's kind of out of luck here.
Yeah, Noah, we're sorry.
We looked. Trust us, we looked.
So Wise works with IFT, but Nest locks do not work with IFT. And how
about that device access console that we kind of poo-pooed a little while ago?
I'm trying to think if you could build an IFT integration to in the device console, maybe this is your project, Kevin. But right now, there is no easy way to get there. Not through SmartThings, not through Wise. Some of their devices work with Google, but not all of them. And there's nothing here for you.
Yeah, this gets to the whole siloed approach that I'm hoping is going away in the very near future.
So for example, Google's going to work with Matter. I'm sure Assa Abloy, the company that makes the Nest by Yale lock, they're in Matter. I don't know if this lock will get a retroactive Matter update. Probably won't. And if it did, Wise works with Matter, but not all of their devices, because not all of their device types. So we don't actually know which of their device types they're going to support. So really, there's not an option for you here.
Yeah. And there is, the Nest by Yale does have a Nest bridge. It's a little plug-in type of bridge to convert signals. maybe that will get an update for the Matter support, but it's just too early to tell.
So Noah, I'm going to say that there's not a great option for you yet. Wise does continuously update things, so maybe there'll be a great option one day. In the meantime, I guess try not to have your hands full. Yeah, we don't like this. All right. Well, sorry we did not have a better answer for you, Noah, but if you want us to, dash your hopes and dreams or maybe offer you a compelling solution, give us a call at 512-623-7424 and maybe we can help. Plus, you'll be entered to win a smart speaker of your choice. Okay, well, that concludes this portion of the show. Please stay tuned to hear from the head of the Drone Express business of Telegrid. And we're going to be talking with Beth Flippo about drones, and more drones. It's going to be awesome. Stay tuned for that. And now, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Very. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Very, a leading IoT engineering firm, and I have Bill Flaherty here, who is the hardware practice lead at Very, ready to talk to us. All right, Bill, so I understand that your team has a fairly unique approach to hardware development. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right, Stacy. Most hardware development practices are decades old, and while software development practices have evolved, hardware is mostly stuck in the 20th or even 19th centuries. Instead of accepting the status quo, we've got a new way of doing things, Agile hardware development.
All right, Agile hardware development. That sounds interesting, but what does that actually mean?
Well, just like for software, Agile hardware focuses on encouraging tight team collaboration, constant interaction with the customer, and being receptive to change, rather than tied to a requirements document. We focus on designing and prototyping small bites of work instead of trying to engineer the whole system all at once. That allows us to iterate quickly, identify issues sooner, and get to market faster.
Excellent. So Very is a 100% remote company. How does that work with hardware development?
We have advanced hardware labs in each engineer's home. That means we can build a prototype for clients quickly and efficiently. We can build, break, and repair hardware on a very rapid cadence.
Oh, so you're breaking hardware on purpose?
Yes. When a large hardware prototype fails after years of development, it can be both financially and emotionally devastating for the team. The difference with Agile is that we're building and breaking hardware early and often. Then we use that feedback to improve the design while the product is still in development. That may sound pricey, but over the long run, it'll save the organization money. It's kind of like the difference between a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage and a balloon mortgage. If you invest in breaking hardware prototypes early and often, you won't have that huge bill come due at the end of the project.
Nice. All right, Bill. Where do I go to learn more about how Very can help me with my IoT project?
You can reach out to us at verypossible.com/Stacy. That's VERY possible.com/STACEY.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Beth Flippo, who is the CTO of Telegrid and in charge of its Drone Express division. Hello, Beth. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excited to have you. We don't often talk about drones on the podcast. I don't know why. But Drone Express recently did a deal with Kroger to deliver drone packages. And so I thought it'd be great to have you come on the show and explain what our drone-filled future looks like. So to kick us off, you should probably explain Telegrid and how it relates to Drone Express.
Absolutely. So Telegrid was founded in 1984. It was founded by my parents. We are a woman-owned small business, and Telegrid has always been a defense contractor. We have always developed communications for the military, so wireless mesh networking, for example. And we had a drone company approach us a few years ago and say, hey, can we get your mesh up on our drone? We said, absolutely, why not? So we had to learn all about drones and how to connect to the flight controller, how to get that data out. And really what our radio did was it gave the drone an IP address. And it allowed it to connect to not only other drones in the sky, but it also allowed it to connect to robots that would be operating on the ground. This was a very unique system that we had developed. We were very excited about it, and we put it up on our webpage to start selling this to the military. And instead, we've just got a huge commercial response from every drone manufacturer wanted this radio. And we took a step back and we said, maybe we've got something here. Where could this really help in a commercial sense? And we knew that package delivery would be the best use of a drone like this that had this kind of capability. So we started our first commercial venture. We created Drone Express as a division. We hired the best drone designers in the industry, and we got to it. And now we have, a few years later, a great drone. We are one of only 10 companies in the entire U.S. that is pre-approved by the FAA for airworthiness, and we are very excited to have gotten to this phase of the company.
Awesome. All right. And let's talk about the decisions y'all made. So instead of selling the technology, y'all built a drone. And instead of selling the drones, you're actually doing drone delivery as a service. So you're basically like a vertically integrated logistics company tied to drones. And I'm curious why y'all chose to go that route.
Yes. The way you're describing is exactly things that we went through trying to figure out what to do in the beginning of this. And we actually did start out thinking we would sell a drone with this capability. And we approached several very intelligent people in different industries, and all of them had the same response, was none of them wanted to own a drone. It's too complicated. They don't understand it. Most people in construction said they don't even own their bulldozers. They don't want to own these complicated machines. But if you offer a service, they don't mind paying more. They just don't want to have to maintain these types of vehicles. And that was really what switched our thinking towards offering this as a service. So we always tell people we are not a drone company, we're a logistics company, because that's really the space we operate in.
And it feels like you probably have an advantage here simply because you're not competing with no one knows how a fleet of drones really should operate, right? It's all greenfields, which is really cool. And so let's talk about some of the things you've discovered about operating a fleet of drones. Like, I'm curious how long a drone lasts. How many deliveries can a drone make? What are kind of the limitations as a logistics company that you have to think about when you're operating a fleet of drones?
Well, a lot of our regulations come from the FAA. Currently, the FAA has a lot of restrictions in place because they want to see these drones operate in a safe environment. So what we did was come up with a service model that was able to do a lot of deliveries, but stay within the restrictions so that we can prove to the FAA that it is safe to fly drones consistently throughout the day. We do not have a truck that drives around that the drones fly off of or anything. We stay in the store parking lot. We have a trailer there that's just housing our drones and our equipment to connect into our cloud environment. But the pilot and the drones, they all stay put in that parking lot all day and operate within a very small radius of the store. That gives us, similar to how a postman will know the neighborhood, we will also learn the neighborhood. We will learn the flight routines of manned aircraft there. We will learn what neighbors like and don't like having a drone flying over their house. We will be able to create routes to avoid flying over the same home every day. So this is how we have tried to change our model to create this future of drones in a fleet environment so that they talk to each other and understand their environment.
How far can a drone fly, and what about like weight limits and that sort of thing?
So our drones can fly for an hour on the battery. We don't like to put a range on it because right now we will need to stay within visual line of sight for the FAA, but we don't really want to fly very far. We make money per delivery. We are a courier, so the shorter the distance, the better for us. So we actually are not trying to go farther. Our drone can carry, right now we're only doing up to 5 pounds. We can carry considerably more than that. However, again, we're not trying to stress the drone. We're trying to learn about what customers are ordering, when they're ordering, how this fits in with existing delivery models of other goods and services. Those are self-imposed limitations, let's put it that way. So we're trying to do slow and steady and be the first out there so we can learn.
I like the approach, the slow learning approach. That's not common in the tech industry. Let's talk about, I am a mom, I am very busy, and I often forget things. So what will drone delivery do for me? Where does that fit into my shopping and delivery patterns, I suppose?
Oh, I have so many examples as a mom of 4 kids myself. One that we always use is countless times when I realize we're out of children's Tylenol is when my kid is sick with a fever. And if my husband, who used to commute, was not home, I would have to take my sick kid, get them dressed up, and drag them down to a CVS, bring them into the store to get something like children's Tylenol. This eliminates that. As a mom now, if your kid's sick, if your kid has a rash or just needs something immediately, some type of medication, it could just be over the counter. You don't need to bring that sick kid or that hurting kid that needs, gauze for if they got hurt. These can all be delivered right to your doorstep in 15 minutes. It's really going to change a lot for moms. Also, before school, we operate starting at sunup. So it could be 6 a.m. My daughter loves yogurt, and there are many days when that yogurt, I forgot to buy more. That could be at my house before she needs to get on the bus, which is something we never thought about. All the stuff they forget, or we forget to get them that they need for school. If they need just a white shirt for the school play, not only can you deliver it to your house, you could also have it delivered to the school in 15 minutes. So you're going to see a lot of these stress points, I can call them, for parents, where your kid needs that water bottle. You forgot to bring the Gatorade to the soccer field. We all experience that. We just didn't have a solution for it until now.
I see. Yes, we have a common, it's less common now, but we used to have the midnight poster board run. That was always sucky. You're like, of course that wouldn't help in the drone situation because it would be dark. Okay. So I guess there's an annoyance factor tied to drones. I know that, they're loud. People tend to be uncomfortable with drones flying over their property. You mentioned that you'll try to learn those habits for people. But I'm just trying to think, do we really want to open up basically 15-minute delivery of goods simply because I think about the 2-day delivery window and what kind of havoc that has wrought with an increasing amount of Amazon delivery vehicles. We're hearing about, accidents being caused by some of their delivery contractors. There's a lot happening with delivery that seems negative or it's too crowded. We're getting too much delivered and maybe we should stop. I don't know how drones fit into that, and I'm worried about adding to all of that.
I hear you. And we watch the Amazon truck go back and forth on our street 10 times a day. We're hoping to alleviate a lot of that. We're hoping to do these one-off quick deliveries so that you don't have to fill up a truck, because trucks are not exactly quiet either. We all hear them barreling down the street. Our drones fly so high, when they're at full altitude, you do not hear them. They fly at up to 400 feet. So it's only when they are descending in order to drop a package that you might hear something from a drone. But I do hear you. And a lot of people are wondering how full the airspace is going to be, but there's a lot of air up there. This is a green technology. There's no guilt. So just that, alleviating the trucks, is a big benefit. So, as much as I hear your concerns, and I've had those concerns too, I think the existing model is not better and it cannot scale. I mean, you can't, people just adding more and more and more to an overloaded ground-based delivery system, that it just can't continue to work like this. Something's got to give. So that's where autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles come in.
Let's figure out the whole for drone delivery. So you mentioned the children's Tylenol. I don't actually know how often that happens. So I'm trying to think about how much it might cost as a consumer. Is this going to be a $20 delivery fee where you really need it? I would pay $20 for Tylenol to avoid taking my kid to the store, for example. but maybe I wouldn't pay that for poster board. So I'm trying to think about how you kind of price things and how we think about what's truly necessary to be delivered via drone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're under $10. We are a very inexpensive delivery fee. So, and I believe a lot of stores are even considering eating that cost to compete with the Amazon Prime model, but it is not expensive. I mean, the only cost is the cost of electricity. You have multiple deliveries being performed an hour, and there's really not that extra cost, but there's a lot of things that people right now, 95% of orders from Amazon are under 5 pounds. We all get them, those little bags, and we all feel bad opening them and realizing the amount of waste in the packaging and the amount of waste in somebody driving this all the way to your house. All those items are eventually going to be delivered by drone.
I guess I don't need all of those things all the time or like instantly. Like I feel like drones, the 15-minute, maybe I'm too stuck on the 15-minute window. But when I think about like things I order for 2-day delivery, it might be, a package of batteries that I don't need right now, or dog bones. And these are terrible examples, books. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, will those things eventually get delivered via drone because it's just better?
Yeah, it's more cost effective. It's better for the environment to have it get to you immediately than it is to have a truck, eventually get that to you. But really, it's the things that you do want right away. Like a rotisserie chicken is 2.5 pounds. Right now, if I needed to find a dinner, I'd probably order pizza or some kind of fast food. All the healthy food is sitting there at my Kroger a mile away from my house, but I just don't want to go out and get it. So those are things we're going to see lunchtime. Why order a Subway sandwich if you can get fresh cut turkey and provolone delivered and you can make yourself an awesome sandwich? Those are the kinds of things that we really want to be seeing people delivering, are things that they normally would have wanted to buy. They just didn't want to go to the store to get it.
Got it. I am super lazy. So let's talk about your deal with Kroger. They've created these packages that I guess come in at the 5-pound weight, and they're baby packages of diapers and wipes and a s'mores package. And I was just curious, like, what is the rationale for those packages?
So we are fully integrated into the Kroger order management system. One of the biggest complaints from supermarkets with Instacart is that Instacart is in front of the supermarket. So you order through Instacart's platform. With us, you order directly through Kroger, and it comes to us as a courier. So right now, when you order items on Kroger's website, they're not adding the weight together to come up with what the total weight is. So if you're doing a delivery from Kroger or a pickup in store, it's just not available right now. That's what they're working on adding. So eventually, by the summer, you'll be placing orders and you'll see as you're adding items to your cart, you'll see drone delivery go away when you've gone over the 5-pound limit. Until that's available, they came up with this great option of doing what they call bundles, which is specified items that all fit under the 5 pounds. So like the s'mores bundle. So on a Saturday, afternoon, you can just order the bundle and it comes with the chocolate, with the marshmallows and the graham crackers, and it's all delivered as one bundle to you. But that is not the end game. That is what they're trying to do to see what people like and what people are ordering. There's like I said, a children's Tylenol one if you have a sick kid, and there's a movie night with popcorn and all these kinds of things. It was a great, middle ground until we get to eventually where it's just any item, anytime.
Got it. Yeah. I feel like I would need the milk and bread bundle. How much does a gallon of milk weigh?
I don't know what a gallon of milk weighs.
That was such a random question.
Oh my God, I'm so good. How much is a gallon?
Sorry, we always run out of milk, so I'm just like, oh man. Okay.
Yeah, me too. 8.6 pounds. So a gallon of milk is out, but you can do smaller size milk. That's another benefit to stores too, is, they make a lot of money on the convenience sizes. So the smaller sizes of things. So you might need bread for a sandwich, but you don't need the whole loaf in 15 minutes. You just need something for your kid to make a sandwich for them to go to school. So you're going to see a lot of smaller packaging being created also. So you might not need to buy the giant thing of oil because you just happen to be making something you just need a a smaller size.
I was going to ask you what this would mean for packaging, and you're right. I guess, yes, smaller would be better.
And they already exist. It's not a new thing. It's just that you're going to see a lot of substitutions. So if you're ordering something and you really want drone delivery, eventually when you put the gallon of oil in, it'll say, if you don't need this, you can choose this smaller size and qualify for drone delivery. So, stuff's in the oven and you can't leave your house. I've been there so many times and you just ran out of eggs. You just ran out of some sugar or something. You can get that stuff. You don't need the full big one.
And you don't have to go over to your neighbor's house. And then, we do this a lot. We're like, oh no, we're out of sugar. We go get a cup of sugar and then we have to give half of our cookies away. It's terrible.
I know. I hope we don't get rid of that though, because I love that neighborly thing that happens. I've been asked a lot for onions and all kinds of things people run out of.
Yeah. I don't think, I'm trying to imagine, even $10 is not huge. And even if it's sub $10, but I'm still I feel like I would still go ask my neighbors, but maybe my daughter who doesn't like to talk to anyone because she's part of Gen Z, maybe she won't do it. I don't know.
Yeah. There's also no tipping, which is nice. There's no tipping and there's no guilt.
That's true. There's no tipping and there's no person you're taking advantage of.
Exactly. And you're not ruining the environment. So But I hope it doesn't take away from the neighborly stuff. But I think for the stuff your neighbors don't have, you'll be able to use it.
My neighbors would not have onions. Okay. And you mentioned also that you think this helps small businesses or local businesses compete. And I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So it's not just small businesses. It's all brick and mortar stores have been really hurting the whole retail segment because of Amazon and other online ordering platforms. And they never had a way to perform delivery quickly, but in a way that was not so expensive as a person running it to your house. So drones do that. Drones are finally giving these brick and mortar stores an edge. So why wait for those, batteries or something for 2 days? If you can get them in 15 minutes, there's no guilt. It doesn't cost the grocery store anymore. And now they've got the order, whereas Amazon would have had the order. This is really you're going to see a lot of brick and mortar stores come back to life because of this. When you go to a mall, there's going to be a part of the mall in the parking lot that's going to be the drone delivery section. And all the different places in the mall will be able to deliver sandals, whatever you want that you're ordering. They could just run it right out to the drone and the drone can do the delivery. That's really going to help, considering right now you just would probably order online. You wouldn't go to your local store where your friends work, that support the Little League. It's unfortunate that we as a society, and I'm guilty of it too, have chosen online. But this will really help those small businesses have a way to get their orders to you just as quickly as if you walk through their store. We're really excited to see where this goes.
Excellent. All right. Well, Beth, I'm excited too. And thank you for coming on the show to tell us about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.